What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. Friday, January 2nd. Happy New Year to everybody. And it is a big weekend in Buffalo Bills Nation with the Bills set to close down Highmark Stadium, the Ralph Rich Stadium, New Era Field. I mean, whatever, term you use to think about the stadium that is coming to a close this weekend. Most likely, maybe there's an off chance the Bills can host a playoff game there. This is going to be it. It's going to be an emotional ride over the next 48 hours. We lead up to kickoff. Ryan and I are going to spend a little bit of this show talking about some of our memories and what it means to us, the fact this is going to be the last one there. I'm very excited about the new stadium, but I think Sean McDermott said it best this week. It's like, take it in this weekend and appreciate all the great moments that have happened there. We're going to read off some of the some memories from some Bills fans in our insider text line. And then we'll preview Bills versus Jets. Not a lot to get into X's and O's wise, but I wanted to talk about, what this game means, how the Bills should approach it. We'll discuss a little bit of that. And then we'll send this thing out. I did an interview with my uncle, one of my uncles. I've had a bunch of family members on the show over the years. He is the one that took me to the greatest comeback game and convinced my dad not to leave at halftime. So it's a fun conversation. I hope everybody hangs out and listens to that as well. Ryan Talbot, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend for the Bills Mafia. And I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but the Erie County Sheriff's Office put something out today. Did you see that at all?
No.
Pretty much warning fans, do not try to take your seats. Do not try to take anything with you from the stadium. You will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. You have an opportunity to buy I think they're expecting some mayhem at the end of this game in terms of fans trying to take something of value with them. So anyone that is on Facebook, it goes through everything: criminal mischief, larcenies. They are expecting some fans to try to walk out with their seats on Sunday. And, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if one or two people tried.
I could see that happening. And honestly, I feel like modern day football is so much more lawful, if you will. Going back and watching some of the clips over the last couple of days, fans just bowling over players after games to get onto the field, ripping down the goalposts. That they had on one of the clips I was watching, I can't remember which game it was. It might have been a Miami Dolphins game. And there were police officers on horses trying to maintain the chaos. And there's no way that's happening. You got 30,000 people in the lower bowl forcing their way onto the stadium. My big question though, Ryan, is, because I think it was Thurman or Steve Tasker and Thurman that were on the Bills documentary they put out on YouTube. I highly recommend going and watching it. They were talking about that they still have pieces of the goalpost that were cut up and given to them. What are you going to do with a little piece of the goalpost? Are you just going to put it up on Elena and Catherine were saying in the room today, you can use it as a pencil holder. I don't know. Do people have pencil holders in the year 2025, 2026? I don't know.
Great question. I think a lot of people will just kind of keep it and maybe in their mantle or something like that for sentimental value. But you're right. Times have certainly changed in terms of taking down the goalpost, stuff like that. It's funny, when I was a kid, I got one of those photographs where it looks like the billboard is lit up with your name on it. And whether it was Rich Stadium, Highmark Stadium, whatever you want to call it, the Ralph, that and Yankee Stadium, both of them had the giant cigarette advertisements on them too, like Marlboro. Times certainly have changed.
They really have. And it's going to be fun. I think I'm going to pop out to Hammer's Lot around 2:00. Andre Reed is doing a meet and greet out there. I'm going to go chat to him a little bit. Hopefully get a video that I could put out on some of our social platforms. And just, I went back and watched the greatest comeback game today just to, feel the nostalgia of my youth. And man, was Andre Reed just absolutely electric in that game. Really just, could you imagine being Frank Reich at halftime of that game? The absolute horrible stats from the first half, not getting anything going, looking up at the scoreboard and having this 4-score deficit, and Andre Reed just coming out in the second half and just saying, "I'll be out there. Throw me the ball, man. Let's get going." So I'm excited to chat it up with him.
Yeah, the sliding catch that he had on fourth down. Obviously, the Bills came out at halftime through an interception again, and the deficit only got larger in that game. But yeah, what a comeback that was between Reed making a ton of plays. I think Kenneth Davis had the first score in the second half for them, and BB down the sideline, which he stepped out of bounds and just wasn't called. So a little bit of lady luck on Buffalo's side in that one.
Definitely. And they recovered an onside kick at one point in that game. It is funny to go back and watch old football games and realize what a different game it is today. I mean, there was one play in the Raiders 51-3 game where Jim Kelly goes back to pass, and I actually think I saved it. Let me see if I can bring this up. It is absolutely hilarious. He goes back to pass, right? Okay, here we go. Goes back to pass. And, Jimbo, for the time, one of the great quarterbacks. But, okay, fumbles the ball here. Look at it. Two guys had a chance after that. This guy, watched them walk right by. And then, boom, James Lofton, nobody around him. He walks completely in untouched. I just think it's funny, the quickness of the game, the athleticism of players. I feel like you never see a play like that happen.
No, not in today's with the way athletes are. One, the quarterback's probably going to dive on the ball too, and not just try to get up and make a play. But no, if the athletes that they're on the defensive side of the ball, that's not going to happen in today's day and age. Excuse me.
So I wanted to spend a minute here just talking about what's been your favorite part about. Of course, we know all of the moments from our youth, right? All the memories of the games. I talk a little bit about that with my uncle a little bit later on. But we've covered this team now for 8+ seasons, 8 for me, 10 for you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite memory of covering this team?
It has to be the game after the DeMar Hamlin injury. Nyheim Hines was, in retrospect, the trade itself did not work out for the Bills in terms of how they probably envisioned utilizing and using him. But in that moment, it paid off in a huge way. Opening kickoff, breaks the tackle, goes the distance. It really did feel like Highmark Stadium was shaking after that play. Obviously added a second touchdown later in the game on another return. But the atmosphere there, because it was such an emotional high coming into the game, first game after the significant injury to DeMar Hamlin, going into cardiac arrest, obviously on the field the week before that. Seeing the emotion from Josh Allen and Sean McDermott on the sideline after Nyheim Hines took that for a score, knowing that, in Allen's case, he didn't have to go out on the field right away, but just to soak it all in and see how the players reacted, that was definitely a special moment to me. What about you?
I thought, looking back, there's a bunch, right? The Patriots' perfect game in the playoffs was so amazing. The Baltimore game, I'm trying to remember. I think I was in the building for that. It was COVID era, but I think everybody, the media, was back in and allowed to cover. But I went back and watched our episode of the podcast, and I think I had driven home so I could do the podcast from home. And it's so funny watching Shout back in 2020 is I feel like I went in a time machine. It felt like a different era of the show. That was up there just because I was there, because it was unbelievable to hear how loud 7,000 people were able to get in that stadium. Because that was the big storyline, if you remember. Is this going to be really able to resonate the same way that a full stadium does? And it really did. And it felt like 80,000 were in there when Taron Johnson ran back that pick for a touchdown. But I think, favorite memory of a moment was probably the 4th and 2 versus the Chiefs game. Because I think historically looking back, that was such a pinnacle of the NFL moment. Aside from a Super Bowl, we covered a game that day that basically won Josh Allen the MVP. And to place him in the lure of the NFL, his status in all-time NFL history, but also in franchise history, that was the game, I think, looking back, that really won him that award. And it was against the Chiefs, and they would have been undefeated going into that game. And there was so much juice going into that game. And I felt like it was so fun to cover it, the way that it unfolded, Josh's play, to go back and, been in the stadium watching it unfold and hearing the broadcast back and Nance's unbelievable call. That was just such a cool moment.
Yeah, the touchdown run on 4th down and pump fake, getting by the defenders and getting in. You're right. That's kind of sealed the MVP award for him last year, and that was definitely a special game, special moment.
All right, so we're going to take a few minutes here, and I put a request out to our insiders. And I said, share with us some of your favorite memories, your favorite moments from the stadium. And I'm going to start with Corey Gasser, one of our regular insiders, has been with us since the beginning. He actually mentioned in here, I've been listening to you guys since 2020. I was stationed in Germany during COVID, basically isolated, no social life, no one to talk about the Bills with. Your podcast got me through my workouts and kept me sane. My wife still thanks you, LOL. Here's his story. The perfect game versus the Pats. I was stationed at Ramstein, Germany, and once my brother and I realized it would be a home game, we knew we had to go no matter what. 14 hours of connecting flights, nearly all of my savings, and a brutal minus 10-degree wind chill at the game. Then Micah Hyde's interception on the opening drive. At first, the stadium didn't realize it. Then once they did, it absolutely exploded. In that moment, everything we went through was worth it. One of the best memories of my life with my brother. Really cool story.
That's an awesome story. And that's the beauty of this, is just the memories that a lot of fans have to the stadium. And Jesse Allen came in and he wrote, my first Bills game, divisional round in 1994 versus the Raiders, 0 degrees at kickoff, yelling at Greg Townsend coming out the tunnel for the Raiders. He's like, I'm crazy. I'm getting paid today. How much you spent to freeze your asses off? I felt I helped earn the victory after experiencing the rewarming pain after cold exposure. And that was quite a memorable game as well.
I got one from Greg here. I was in the end zone section for the first game, directly behind the player who took the kickoff all the way for a touchdown, which I think actually was featured on the documentary the Bills put out. Then the Monday night game in 75, where Ahmad Rashad scored twice in the last 2 minutes to beat the Raiders. Then 1980, when we finally beat the Dolphins, where I saw a part of the field goal post pass me in the parking lot. I need a documentary done on the field goal posts. Like, to me, that is like the tradition in football that doesn't currently exist, that was just running wild back in the day.
Right. You'd have fans sitting on it, pulling on it from the top until they came down. And you're right. You have a zero shot of doing that today. You're going to get arrested pretty quickly if you try. Aliyah, if I'm saying this right, if I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. Aliyah J. moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2021, got last-minute playoff tickets to the Patriots playoff game, drove overnight Friday, got in at 6 a.m. with our hotel room given away, crashed with family for 3 hours of sleep, met up with friends, went to the frigid tailgate around Burn Barrels. Then we watched the perfect game, saw Micah Hyde's interception with my own eyes and still couldn't believe it. Partied the whole game, drove about 5 hours, crashed at a Red Roof Inn, and then made it back to Charleston for work Monday morning. Worth every second.
Just the stories about the circumstances around how you got to the game, how you watch the games. A lot of times, like, those are the memories that really stick with you more than anything, because, you know, there's local season ticket holders that go to maybe every game, locals that go to a bunch of games over the course of the season. And I think, thinking back on all the memories, like, of course, the football memories of like what happened in the game were always super special. But I think it's more about like getting a chance to spend time with your family and friends and sharing those memories, that I think, like, with the stadium going away, that's what you'll miss the most about it. And of course, you're going to make new memories in a new state-of-the-art facility that's going to be something that fans around the league marvel at. But like the memories of 50 plus years in this building, I mean, with your friends and family is what really stands out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough for a lot of fans when that stadium is truly and officially gone, where you can't look across the street from the new stadium over there and see it anymore. But the memories will last and remain.
All right, James, he's got one here. One memory I have that sticks out was Doug Flutie's first official start, when he ran the winning touchdown in against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was really young, and my dad wanted to beat the rush out of the stadium. So we went to the top of the stairs of our section, and my dad had to pick me up so I could see what happened. When Flutie ran in and scored the touchdown, everyone went nuts, and everyone started hugging each other. Then we got out of the stadium, and all the adults were giving me high fives. I was 10, and I had never experienced something like that in a stadium of 75,000 people. And I mentioned that documentary, Brian, that the Bills put out a couple days ago. They interviewed former players, former team employees that, had worked with Ralph Wilson and helped design and come up with the plans for the initial Highmark Stadium. And at the end, they had brought Tasker, Thurman Thomas, and Jim Kelly into the Bills locker room, and they were interviewing them, and clips from that interview aired throughout the documentary. But at the end, Steve Tasker said something that really grabbed me almost as much as anything has all week. And he said, thinking back to what this week means, he's like, we were kids in there, right? Like we grew up in there. And for all of us, I think that grew up around the team and spent time down at that stadium. And even if it's not down at the stadium, but watching all the moments from the Bills all those years with friends and family, like it does. It takes you immediately back to all of those moments and puts you there. And like James's story here, like that's a memory with his father he'll have for the rest of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about some of the players you mentioned is the fact that they have never left. It's Tasker still employed by the team doing the One Bills Live, and you have Jim Kelly who resides in this area. Thurman Thomas does a lot of business still in this area and lives in this area. So it's cool that, Buffalo, New York, it has a reputation, but these legends of yesteryear still remain here in some capacity, and it's still important to them. And I have another one here from Joe D. He mentioned the Houston Oilers comeback game. He jokes that he was one of the 1.2 million people in the stadium with his college friends. They had season tickets in the end zone opposite the tunnel. Good times, and the tickets were relatively cheap back then. I know you were there. I've heard so many stories of people leaving, trying to get back in. But what a party it was for those that remained and got to see the final outcome of that game.
We're going to talk about this in a little while when I have my uncle on, but I think we might have cracked the code here. I think there were more than 80,000 people that went to that game because they were climbing back over the rails. And I would imagine anybody in Orchard Park around that was maybe tailgating, that maybe wasn't going to the game, because that's something that people do today. They just
Yeah.
go for the party down there, right? They want to go, they want to eat. And I know my barber, shout out John Peroni, best barber in Buffalo. If you're not going to him, man, I don't know what you're doing. But he oftentimes will go down to the stadium to tailgate with friends, and then he'll head back home to watch the game. So I would imagine back in the 90s, like as the Bills were really starting to get going, people would go down and just want to be down there for the party, even if they didn't have a ticket. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow 90,000 people got inside that building for that game.
It wouldn't shock me. I've had people ask me, like, why are there fans outside of the stadium when they're doing those live shots of bowl games and things like that? I'm like, they just like to party. They like to tailgate. And
Yes.
You're right in that moment. And by the way, I love the barber plug. You just got like 5 free haircuts out of that, I think.
He's the man, dude. I would pay full price for the rest of my life because plus it's like, it's a great barbershop, dude.
Right.
Like if you haven't been there, I highly recommend going and checking it out. Linda West, one of our insiders, my favorite memory was being in the end zone with my mom and brother when the Bills finally beat Miami and they tore down the goalpost right in front of us. It was something I'll never forget. She also said, don't get me started on the concerts. All of the memories from going to concerts inside that stadium, I think a lot of people have those memories as well.
And Tony came in and said that his dad was at the first game there, and he mentioned, his father has since passed away, and now he's making sure that he and his 3 sons are flying in from Atlanta to be here for the last one. So,
Dude, that's awesome.
Cool to have that within your family, being able to say you were there for the first, someone in your family, and there for the last.
If I am going to be out in the tailgates a little bit to go do this interview. So if you are somewhere within walking distance and you're an insider, send me a message. I'd love to stop by, chop it up with you for a few minutes. I want to try to get as much content around this game as possible. So it's going to be super fun. One of our regulars, Mary, my favorite memory was the first game DeMar was back. She shares this memory with you. They all prayed right in front of us. We were up 10 rows, but it seemed he looked right at me and tears just streamed down my face as we both held our hands with the heart sign. My granddaughter filmed them kneeling and praying. We never really had much money for games. We raised 3 grandchildren who are now adults, but we watched on TV. It was like witnessing a miracle.
Yeah, there's so many cool moments like that fans are going to be able to take with them and pass those stories down. Michael K. There with my dad who passed away 10 years ago. It was the Sam Adams touchdown game where the Bills beat the Patriots 31-0. He also says it was the Lawyer Malloy game, opening day with Drew Bledsoe.
James Weiss, who we have to hire as our personal publicist. He shares
Yeah.
our podcast out on IG all the time. Thank you so much, James. Also an insider. My first time as a fan was going to cheer on my Jamestown high school classmates in the Section 6
Mm.
championship game in 1991, which is also kind of a sad part of this, is that they won't be playing the high school games there anymore, which is something that I think a lot of people share this memory. But my last time in the stadium was with my then 19-year-old son for the Pittsburgh playoff game 2 years ago that was pushed back a day because of the snowstorm. Shoveling out our seats and throwing up the snowfetti after the Josh Allen rushing touchdown and that Shakir pinball catch and run touchdown into the end zone we were sitting behind was such a great memory to share with my kid.
Love that. I've got one more. Anthony Romeo, another insider, comes out to our shows whenever he can at Turning Stone. I've been lucky enough to attend playoff games in the stadium. I was the return to Monday Night Football game versus Dallas, which was probably my favorite tailgating experience. But the loudest and craziest I've seen was the 2024 game versus KC when Josh ran through the defenders to the TD. I was sitting on the opposite side of the same end zone, 9 rows up around the 5-yard line. Beautiful view of the play. The crowd went wild, and it will definitely always be one of my favorite memories at the Ralph.
This is one of my favorite live show memories. Our good buddy, Derek Babcock, who has been watching the show and listening to the show and chatting with us over the years, got out to a live show. His favorite memory is finally making it to Buffalo after being a Bills fan all his life, to go to where my late dad is from and fall in love with the city and people and get to go to all the places I would always hear about and make a live show. And this is him with his family. Got a chance to see him out at the live show. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too. Getting to meet these Bills fans who have been to so many of these classic games and getting to know them on a personal level as well.
Tried to read as many of these as possible. If we didn't make it, I'm going to try to put together a post for the website with a bunch of these little stories. So it's we appreciate the insider sending these in. If you want to become an insider, text 716-528-6727. Put in your info. You get a 2-week free trial, and then it is $3.99 a month after that. It's just taking your shout experience to the next level, 24/7 access to myself and Ryan Talbot. And I feel like the off season is as good a time as any to become an insider, Ryan.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of things to talk about. We'll obviously talk about free agency, the draft, potential salary cap moves that the Bills will make, and so much more. So there's never a downtime in the NFL season, and that means there's never a bad time to join the Shout Insider text line. And even here in the comments, Matt Dawn taking my 90-year-old mom to a stadium tour in September. And some of these other, Travis as well, Bengals playoff game. That was a massive snow game, bad loss, but great game for memories.
If you're making memories this weekend, whether it be out at the tailgate, if you're hosting a big party at home, head over to Tops Friendly Markets that has ready to serve fan favorites right now. This playoff season, let Tops do the cooking and you'll be the MVP. Visit takeoutmeals.topsmarkets.com and elevate your food game with a great selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizzas, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. All right, Ryan, Bills versus Jets. Where do you want to start here? What are you thinking headed into this thing?
I'm thinking I can't wait until it's over. Because in terms of games, this is going to be pretty much a nothing burger. The Bills are already locked into a playoff spot. The Jets are already locked into starting their vacation plans here pretty early. So whatever ends up happening in the game itself, as long as the Bills come out healthy, that's really all that matters. The only thing of real significance I could see mattering to Bills fans is James Cook making sure he wins the rushing title this year. And they'll know exactly how many yards he needs based on the outcome of the Colts game, which will take place before that one.
Yeah, let's start with like who is set to maybe play in this game. Like, Sean McDermott is taking this all the way up until the opening kickoff for everybody to figure out how much his starters are going to play. It feels like a good chunk of them will, which we knew that going in already, because you can't hold off everybody. You don't get to bring up your entire practice squad for this game. So there's guys that are regular contributors that are going to have to play in this game. For me, I'm probably sitting Christian Benford, Joey Bosa, who's listed as questionable. I'm not playing him either. I'm probably not playing Shaq Thompson if I can avoid it, or Matt Milano with the way that they've been playing. Let Dorian Williams and Joe Andreessen head out there and play a ton of snaps. Deion Walker, he's going through an illness right now, but I'd imagine he'll be ready to go this weekend. But in terms of Josh Allen and James Cook, how many of your starting offensive linemen are you playing? Because those two guys are not playing for me an extended run unless your 5 starters are out there. And I'm not overly worried about this Jets defense. I mean, they have basically like a practice squad caliber defense at this point. They're sitting most of their established players. Or they're out with injury, or they don't have them, or they already traded them away. So I don't have a huge issue with that. I'm much more comfortable with allowing James Cook to go out there and try to chase the rushing title than I am an injured Josh Allen, who's limited in practice today after DNPs the last 2 days. And he looked like he was walking around a little bit better today. But I'm letting him go out there, hand the ball off one time. And that's it for me when it comes to Josh Allen.
That's all I want to see, but I will say I'm a little concerned that the Bills did not add another quarterback to their practice squad this week to kind of elevate for the game and to become, the backup for Mitch. Now, mind you, if your game plan is going to be handing it off to Ray Davis and Ty Johnson for the majority of the game, maybe you feel like you don't need that. But it's still a little worrisome because it makes me wonder if they're going to let Allen play a drive or two. Where I don't think that should be the case. I know he's at 39 touchdowns. Maybe he wants to get the 40 touchdowns for the year. I know that that's a streak he's been having go on for the last few seasons, but I'm right there with you. One handoff, call it a day. The streak is extended. And just from that point on, let James Cook get the rushing title. And after that, you're calling off all your important players and just playing it out to the best of your ability.
In terms of practice squad call-ups, I feel like it's probably going to be Matthew Judon at this point, getting his first Bills action, and then maybe like a Keontae Jenkins at linebacker. If you want to sit down Shaq, you don't have Terrell Bernard already, and you're probably going to not want to play Matt Milano, if at all, very much. So I think that allows you to bring up a couple linebackers, let Andreessen, Williams, and honestly, we were talking about it on Wednesday. Like Williams's value it's never been higher than what I think they're going to ask him to do in the playoffs. So I think bringing up Jenkins makes a lot of sense, and you can kind of roll him and Andreessen, give them kind of like a extended audition, not whether it be for the Bills or for other teams maybe next year.
Jenkins came in and had a really good summer, had an injury after he made the practice squad. I think he could have been elevated a few times this year had it not been for an injury that he suffered early in the season. So I do think that he could be in their plans next year. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever. I love those two names for elevations. We've seen Matthew Judon at practice. We've seen videos put out. Don't love the jersey number, but at this time,
that's rough.
36, right?
Yeah, dude. It's so ugly to see a defensive lineman with a 30s number.
And I guess that's where we are now. We're those old guys complaining about jersey numbers of players, but just doesn't look right. A 36 on a D lineman. But it is what it is. I'll be excited to see him play. He makes a ton of sense because Jones Jr.'s already had his maximum elevations, where come playoff time, you have unlimited. So if they would like him as much as you and I think they do, that being Andre Jones Jr., he could get elevated as much as this run goes. But get a good look at Judon. You claimed him, or you signed him, I should say, to your practice squad for a reason. And this could be a good chance to see if he can be someone that can help you out come playoff time.
Two cool stories. Two guys from the Jets that will be in the building. I don't know if either of them will be playing. I think Harrison Phillips will be, but then Tyrod Taylor will also be back in Highmark Stadium. He's played there a couple times, but I think that's kind of cool that both of those guys will be there. All right. One key to the game and prediction. Hit me with it.
Stay healthy. That's my key to the game. Like I said earlier, the outcome doesn't bother me whatsoever. If the Bills are the seven seed, I have the utmost confidence they can go to New England and defeat the Patriots. If they end up winning, I can't imagine a scenario where they get all the way up to the 5th seed. But I could see them being the 6th seed. And Jacksonville, there's some flaws on that team that I think the Bills would have some success with. So maybe not as confident in that matchup as I am with the New England matchup, but let the chips fall where they may. Stay healthy. That's my big thing. And then I guess if there is one live in game one, don't throw an interception. The Jets have not had an INT all year. I want to see them end up with 0 interceptions for the season. That would just be a hilarious stat.
Yeah, I think you want to get Ray Davis going in this game. Like, to me, that's one of the keys to the game is just like, running the ball, like maybe get Keon Coleman involved a little bit. I think the Bills are going to be able to score the football. And I think this would be a good kind of, I don't know, like reestablishing some level of confidence for Keon Coleman, who's been a healthy scratch for a big chunk of the games the last couple of weeks. I'm not sitting here saying that you should, expect big things from him in the playoffs or anything, but I do think getting him out there and finding some success, even if it is against the Jets team and it's Mitch Trubisky, I also think like I want to see what this looks like with Mitch Trubisky. Can you maybe unleash him a little bit and see what it looks like in the passing game if you're going to be playing Tyrell Shavers and Brandon Cooks and Keon Coleman and I don't know, Dalton Kincaid's questionable. I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys are held down and we see are held back and Jackson Hawes and Kaleki Latu get a lot of action. We'll see how this ends up playing out. But I agree with you. It's about keeping people healthy. It's about getting through this game. And I do sneaky think you want to win it. And I think you can win it with your backups because it then positions you to at least maybe be the 6th seed. And if Houston doesn't take care of business, maybe even sneak all the way up to 5. And then you can start talking about, hey, maybe in a dream scenario, you can finally, this won't be the last game at Highmark Stadium.
Yeah, a lot of magic would have to take place for that to occur. But as long as you're not locked into the 7 seed, anything could happen.
I do think the Bills get it going on offense. I think maybe even a pick 6 or something, or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I got the Bills winning big, 41-28. What do you think about that?
Ooh, I think that's a lot of points in that game. I have the Bills winning 20-10. You get a few Matt Prater field goals, get him back into a groove come playoff time, a few extra points as well, and the Bills win their final game at Highmark Stadium.
All right, so that'll do it for this part of the show. I sat down with my uncle who took me to the greatest comeback game and convinced my dad not to take me home at halftime. We talked all about that. It's a quick little interview. I hope you hang around and check that out. We're also brought to you by Amtrak. Make sure you head over to Amtrak.com during the holiday season and beyond to make sure that they got you covered for any trip that you have to take. No middle seats. Great baggage policy. You always have your baggage free, and then kids ride 50% off. Head over to Amtrak.com for more. For Ryan Talbot, who's going to head out of here, I'm Matt Parrino. Check out this interview now with my Uncle Tim. All right, everybody. As promised, Uncle Tim is in the house, and I've had my dad on, Uncle Tony on. I had my brother. I've had some other siblings. So I felt like with the stadium set to probably host its last game this Sunday, there's nobody more fitting to bring on and talk to from my past than Uncle Tim. And it's funny, the one game that we were at and my dad was there, I'm pretty sure that was the only game ever that I was at a Bills game with my father. I think most of the games that I went to as a child were with you, and I was getting to think about it. Like, why did you bring me to all those games?
Because you were my little buddy.
That's awesome, man.
And you were a total Bills fan, So growing up, we just got into all the sports and watched them. But even from that early age, we were just so hooked on the Bills. So whenever I had the opportunity to bring you, then why not? And it was fantastic.
Yeah, and man. I don't know. There's so many people like, my dad, Uncle Tony, you, Uncle Peter. I've told the story about him. I don't think I would be in my career if not for some of those memories and moments. And, so many people are talking about like this week, what the stadium means to them. And really it was such a big part of our childhood. When did you go to your first game?
I was thinking about that earlier, and I was said, man, when did I actually make it to a game? And I started thinking back, and I think the stadium opened up, in 73?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I would have only been 10 years old. So starting that, I just threw out my age to you. I've been lying to you for so many years. But I was at the rock pile, right? And I'm trying to get my my mindset around that. I think Papa Bud had taken me there. So it was probably as a I don't know. Certainly when I was got to be the teenage years, then my buddies and I would go. But I don't remember the first game. But I always associate going to those games. It's either with friends or family, and that's one of the beautiful things about it, is to being able to share that. And certainly, and you mentioned your career. I mean, that's just so awesome. I mean, that was a dream of yours for so long. So the whole family is proud of what you're doing. So that's fantastic.
I'm thinking back. If you had to guess, how many games would you say you've been to at the Ralph, Rich, Highmark Stadium? If you were just ballpark it.
I would probably go with well into the 30s, I think. So I had season tickets for a few years. So that was certainly at the time that was 8. So
Mm-hmm.
and I think I had that for 3 years anyway. So that was 24. And then, man, those early 90s, a buddy of mine in Jamestown in the Navy, Lieutenant Lawrence Taylor was his name. You probably don't remember him from the wedding, the real tall guy.
I do remember it because you thought it was so cool that, obviously one of the greatest players of all time, Lawrence Taylor, and you would always bring that up.
Right. So basically, I mean, he had season tickets and he was always taking us all the time. And so really those early 90s, before I had season tickets later on, it was like we were going to all the games and those crazy games, those crazy playoff games and everything. It was just so fantastic.
So I've told this on the podcast several times, and I think that you can finally corroborate my story here, that I was one of the 75,000 people that were at the greatest comeback game of all time. Now, we went, it was myself, you, Uncle Peter, and my dad. And you were the one that convinced the two of them not to leave with about half of the rest of the stadium. Could you imagine if we would have left that game?
Oh, that was crazy. And that's one of my favorite stories of all time. And yes, it kind of changed over the years. I don't know if you remember when you came back from Vegas, and I think it was your son Luke's birthday party. We're at a park, and the story came up again. And man, did your dad start changing things around a little bit. But I am totally going to set this straight, right? So the 4 of us are at the game. It was just fantastic. I don't know who got the tickets. Maybe your dad got the tickets. Peter got the tickets. So anyways, the 4 of us went. And of course, we were getting completely crushed, right? So at halftime, Uncle Peter and your dad's like, all right, we're out of here. And I'm going, no way, for a couple different reasons. A, right, this is a perfect life lesson I can teach my nephew, Matthew, right? Never leave early, always support the team, all these kind of things. So they were on their way out. They're like, well, how are you guys going to get home? I said, Matthew and I will take a cab. I said, I don't care. We're not leaving. And I thought about this earlier today. So even, when it got down to it, your dad says, Matthew, we're going, I give you the look like, no, you're staying. You probably would have had to go with your father. But I remember, because I was thinking about that earlier today, that I would have stayed anyways, just to prove the point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just so to say, never leave, always have hope, always have faith. You never know what happens. But yeah, so it was crazy. So they decided to stay. And remember, I think this was the first and my only time that I ever sat in the end zone. And surprisingly, end zone seats aren't as bad as you always thought they were. Now, certainly on the other end of the field, that's a little bit different. But up close, man, those are good seats. But the beauty of this is twofold. So when the game got crazy, when they started coming back, I don't know if you recall, but we could look over the outside of the stadium, and there were folks climbing the fence and coming back in, because at some point, they locked the gates, and you got to go out a certain exit, so just the gates aren't open, and people were just climbing the fence and everything. And finally, security just opened up the gates, and we were just watching people from the parking lot flood in. So that was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I think I heard Marv Levy say one time, yeah, there must have the amount of people that the stadium could hold capacity was probably like 500,000 people. Because that seems like the number of people that would come up to him and say, I was at that game. But you and I were.
Well, what's funny is thinking back to it, there's people that go down. I don't know if this was very prevalent back in the 90s, but now my barber's one of these guys, like gals, whoever goes to the game, they just go down and tailgate to have the party. They're not even necessarily going to the game. Maybe they'll get a trailer outside the game. They'll put a TV on, or they'll just rush home at around 12:30 for a 1:00 game and then watch it. Was that very prevalent? Because if people are scaling the fences like we watched, and that was the thing, we were kind of at the top of the pole, which is funny. Whenever I do the pregame show, right, at 11 o'clock or whenever it is, we're in the one end zone, and I have a direct line to where the you can look over the stadium wall and you see the new stadium built in the background. And I'm pretty sure I figured it out that we were right in the top left corner, which would have given you a perfect front row seat to the game. And then you turn around and you would see the brand new stadium. And that's where all that kind of fencing is there. But I'm sure there was people probably climbing the fence to get back in. It didn't even have a ticket to the game. So
you're right, baby.
I think there's probably a few people that came in that weren't there initially.
Right. And it's funny before, of course, maybe if I would have thought about it earlier, I was down ripping through my desk, right? And I was trying to find the ticket to show it. I must have it somewhere. So I found like 5 tickets, and they were all old tickets. You know, one was the Saints game, one was a Chicago game, a Pittsburgh game. But I know I have that somewhere. Because I remember years ago, I looked around for it, probably found it and said, oh, thank God I still have it. Right. But that was a proof. But one of the most exciting things, obviously, the game itself, just radical. I mean, that's still the greatest comeback in NFL history, right?
Somebody might have beaten it. Hang on.
Certainly postseason, though. Certainly for playoffs, anyways.
The greatest comeback in NFL history is now the Minnesota Vikings, but I do believe that was a regular season game. So I think that is the largest postseason comeback still.
Sure. And that was fantastic. But do you recall? So now your Uncle Peter and your dad a little bit maybe more conservative and reserved and things like that, right? Do you remember how crazy they themselves were getting? Do you remember just pounding on the seats in front just to make noise? Everyone was making noise, and how excited they were and how much they were completely into it. I'd never seen them like that much of a kid and getting rowdy, and that was a great part of that too.
I think that's so great that you bring that up, because if you know those two guys, to see them in that setting is just so, they're very much like conservative, but very much authoritative, like in control, the patriarchs of the family. And you're right. You might as well rewind the clock to when they were like teenagers or little boys in that moment. That was the whole stadium. I mean, I went back and watched the game back to kind of really put into context what actually happened. And first of all, it's just crazy to think about. I'm actually going to talk to Andre Reed on Sunday. I'm going to one of the tailgates. He's coming into town in the last game, and he was magnificent in that game. And you think about it, Jim Kelly's out.
He had a sick game. Yeah.
Yep. Thurman gets injured with a hip injury in the third quarter, so Kenneth Davis has to play for most of it. Cornelius Bennett was out. So, like, it was really Bruce Smith was the last big star in that game. And really they did everything they can to limit his like impact on that game. And it was Reed who had to step up and make all the plays. And it was just, it was unbelievable to go back and watch. But I bring that up because just the looks on people's faces as the camera was panning all through the fans after each score was happening, and just like everybody kind of looking at each other like, is this really happening in Buffalo? That the story's gonna end a lot differently than it did.
Exactly. Right. And I can remember at each touchdown, like we'd have this moment. I look at you and we kind of like, our eyes would go, oh, you never know. That was fantastic.
It was, the tailgates too. Like, I wanted to ask you this: Bills Mafia has become such like a big part of the brand. Like, of course, it's, Josh Allen is the most well-known part of, Bills Nation at this point, but the fan base during that playoff drought really kind of flipped how people viewed the Bills, right? Like in the 90s, they were this kind of punchline. And I think in the 2000s to 2010s, like, it became like cool to be a Bills fan, which is so different than what it was like growing up. It always felt like we were like the whipping boy, right? Of the league. What was the fan base like? If you think about what it's become and all the videos and like the feature stories that have been done on the fans and the tables and all of the craziness, the paraphernalia thrown onto the field and everything like that. Was it like that all the time back in the 80s and 90s? Or is that something that the fan base just became different? Because you were at all those tailgates back in the day.
Oh yeah, and the tailgates were simply just a lot of fun, and not to mention like the food. Oh my gosh, I remember opening day. It would be the cooking filet mignons and all these kind of things along with the bacon. So that was always crazy. So things like the tables.
Mhm.
That kind of morphed. I think maybe I went to a game and saw that, but I never really quite understood that. And I don't know if anybody outside of the Buffalo area would would get that as well. But it just turned into a thing, you know. So it's still crazy and going on. But that fan base, like you said, yeah, I think it was always intense, regardless. When when poor records, everything else, it's the love of the Bills. You don't necessarily always want to tie something into your community like a sports team, but nonetheless, it is right.
Mhm.
I think, and I lived throughout the U.S. in the Navy, right? So I was in different cities, and I think the only one that, and it could be more, So I wasn't in every city, but had such a tie-in with their football team. Maybe Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
And I never spent any real time in Green Bay, but that's another one I would throw out. But I lived in the New England area for a while, Southern California, and making all these visits. And I always thought that Bills fans were extremely unique and very supportive of the team for sure. But
Dude,
yeah,
this has been
crazy stuff. Yeah,
this has been
we can't get
awesome,
into
man.
all the stories.
I know. I know.
Right.
It is crazy thinking back. The last thing I wanted to mention, just the stadium itself. So I only have I think four stadiums left that I haven't been to in the NFL now, because
Oh,
I've been covering the Bills for it's my 8th season. So I got to go to Vegas, San Francisco, Denver, and Arizona. Those are the only four that I haven't. I've been to I've been to the Cardinal Stadium, but never for a Bills game. And I think about all of the new stadiums around the league that have been erected over the last decade plus, even like a stadium like Gillette that's been there for a while, and just
yes.
how much of a different world it feels like. I think that as much as I'm excited for the new stadium, there's going to be an element to this old stadium that you miss. I mean, I definitely think there's probably like some asbestos growing in certain areas of it, and
Right.
when you walk into certain areas, I'm heading out, and it looks like there's doors are going to fall down. Like it's
Right.
like
Right.
it's a truly old relic of a stadium that they've just kind of kept together. But there's a charm to it, and
There
even
is.
looking at when I drive up on Abbott and you see the new stadium and it's this towering behemoth of a thing. And then you see Highmark, which is like, of course, built into the ground. So it's much smaller. It
Right.
doesn't go, it's almost half the size, like in terms of like the height of the thing. It just
Yeah.
feels, it's got an old time feel to it. I think you're going to lose in the new building, but at the same time, it's going to be like probably the nicest stadium in the NFL for at least a little while.
Right, and that'll be very exciting. So I will look forward to get back to a game just to experience that new stadium for sure. How much time we have left?
We got a few.
Okay, so I want to bring up a couple other ones. So yeah, the stadium's very exciting. So everyone should be pretty pumped about that. But I agree, and maybe sometimes I hold on to things a little longer, more sentimental. So yeah, it's probably a little bit rougher for me because so many great memories at Rich. But you talked about earlier. You had mentioned about being outside of the stadium and people just coming to the game. So I don't know if you remember. We were at a game. I don't remember how or why or what it was. You got sick.
Oh, I do remember this.
So we were doing the pregame. We went inside, and you were just feeling awful. And I'm sure I gave you like, "Oh, come on, suck it up, Matthew."
I was saying it to myself. You're finally in a game, man. Like, get it together.
Right. And then, but really, you were not feeling well. So we left, and we went down to the car. I think I went outside, got a fire going again. Don't forget to tell me to go back to the fire stuff.
Okay.
And we're sitting out there, and you are just miserable. And then you started feeling a little better. And I think I asked, "Oh, do you want to go back in?" And we're like, "No, let's just chill." So I think we had the game on the radio. That I don't remember, but the experience of you and I being out in that parking lot and being able to hear the sounds coming from the stadium, right? The screaming, it was this very surreal experience, at least for me. And I thought at the time, you thought, yeah, this is very neat. When would I ever experience that again? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, thumbs up to you. If it wasn't for you, your uncle Peter and your dad probably would have forced me to go. Right. No, we're getting out of here. So that was one. And then that experience of sitting out there. And I think it was a Miami game, but we ended up just chilling in the chair. I think we started the fire back up and listening to just the roar of the crowd it was just so unique. It was quite a great experience.
Yeah, because thinking back to it, I do remember that. And I do remember just how mad I was about getting sick. And that was pre-cell phone. So it's like, it's not like you just
Exactly.
text
Yeah.
my mom and tell her to come pick me up at the front door and go back in. So it was kind of like you were kind of stuck in it. So yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, that's all pre-cell phone type stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's no selfies going on. There's no let's record or hey, let's watch the game live type of thing. No, but that was very cool by itself.
What was the fire stuff?
So I just and it was reduced over the years, but man, in that parking lot, just the bonfires that would be held. I mean, it was just incredible to see. And I always remember, and everyone's having, you don't really notice it while it's going on, but it's the after effect when you leave the stadium. I mean, the place looked like a war zone. There's still fires. There's still fires going on all over the place. It just looks like, man, this is it's just carpet bombed or something.
Right.
Like that. And I always remember just hanging out and always wondering, and I can only remember for sure, it may have happened to a few other teams, but we may have been in the parking lot long enough for the opponent's team leaving, right, in their buses. And so I absolutely remember Miami leaving and having them thinking to themselves, what are these bunch of yahoos, right? Just hanging out in this war zone. And of course, and then grabbing the snowballs and throwing them at the team's buses. They're leaving. They're just like, oh my God, we got to get out of this place. These fans are nuts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think it was Deion Dawkins was saying it yesterday is going to change about even for the players, because one of the cool things about for them is driving up on game day and being able to actually be in the tailgates with everybody and seeing people like with the fires and the big food setups and it's gotten so crazy over the years. Like when you're driving down Abbott, the one part of it, there's like a string of quarterbacks that the Bills have beaten that year, and they're hung up almost like a murderer's row or something. It's pretty crazy. Like there's a lot of elaborate stuff, and it's just the vibes of the pregame are still going to be intact because of it's still out in Orchard Park. I always thought moving it downtown, while would be cool in a couple of ways, I was concerned about losing maybe the tailgate, because you go into some of the other downtown cities and it's just not the same. So that'll be cool.
Right. Yes.
But it's crazy to think about, like over 50 years of memories that, all Bills fans and their families have together. I thought it was a perfect way to put a bow on it, to go back and talk about some of the stuff that we experienced together.
Right. Right. Great memories at that stadium. Oh, I'm so excited you're interviewing Andre too.
Yeah, man. That's going to be really cool. I'll definitely mention
I'm not that he would give a crap, but tell him just say, my man.
Your favorite line. Uncle Tim. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
That was super cool. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Shout out to Uncle Tim. I'm making my way through the family tree here. We're getting a little bit of everybody from the Parrino clan involved in the Shout podcast. I cannot wait for Sunday. Bills versus Jets, 4:30. Like I mentioned, if you're going to be out in the tailgates, send me a DM, send me an insider text. Let me know where you'll be. I'll try to meet up with as many fans as possible. I want to try to, capture the heart of the thing, if you will. Wingnuts is coming up. Depending on the Bills' playoff schedule, I know they're probably going to be on the road for most of it. We're going to try to fit in a Friday show in the playoffs at Wingnuts at the airport location, 4600 Genesee Street. So stay tuned for the details of that. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Take care, everybody.